Scales and especially cross-unders can be one of the most difficult things for harp students to master, and struggling with scales can often mean struggling with playing the songs that you want to play because scale passages and melodies with crossovers and cross-unders are all over the place in harp music. So to help you play smooth and fast scales, today I'm going to be showing you some common mistakes you might be making in your scales as well as how to fix them. Now, really quickly, what is a scale? Put simply, a scale is when you play every string between two strings with the same name. And typically what makes them difficult are the places where you have to cross your fourth finger under or your thumb over in order to keep the fingering going as you move up or down the scale. The first mistake I see really often is not holding your hand position with enough space between your thumb and second finger. So if you're ever playing scales and your hand feels really cramped, or you feel like you don't have enough room to replace your fingers after a cross, this might be why. To fix this, we want to focus on keeping your hand really nice and open and round, almost as if you're holding a cup, with pointing your thumb up to the sky. And fixing this next mistake is going to help with this one too. And that next mistake is not placing your fourth finger low enough or your thumb high enough when it's time for a cross. When it is time to cross the finger over or under, it's really important that we place in such a way that we maintain that nice round space that we just made for your thumb. And so in order to do that, what we want to do is when we get to the cross under with a finger 4, we want to drop that finger down and place. Or if we're coming down the scale with your thumb, we want to lift it nice and high and then bring the hand forward to place it on that string. Sometimes with the thumb, people will kind of play their first 3, right? You go 1, 2, 3, and oh, my thumb is already right here next to this string that I'm crossing over on. So I'll just leave my thumb where it is. But no, we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we're lifting that thumb really nice and high, and then you're gonna have to bring your hand forward in order to place it on that crossover string. Not moving the arm and the elbow. The reason why moving your elbow along with your hand is so important is because, let's say I get to a cross under. If I try to replace my fingers without moving my hand backwards and thus my elbow backwards, I have to really twist myself up to get those fingers placed. My wrist is going to start doing some weird stuff. So we want to move that elbow along with the hand. Fixing this mistake will help you get your fingers placed back on the string much more quickly and comfortably, because oftentimes people will play a scale and totally forget about their arm and their elbow as they're playing. Because if you think about it, if I start my scale here and I end my scale here, that's a totally different position for your hand, and so our arm and our elbow needs to move to accommodate that change as well, right? If I were to start my scale here, I'll do my left elbow. If I keep my left elbow exactly in this place and try to play with my left arm all the way to here, woo, look at this like gymnastics that my wrist is doing. That's crazy. So to play comfortably up here, I need to create a little more space for my elbow. So you can even try this. Place your hands where you start the scale and then move them along the strings up to where they're going to finish. And notice how your elbows and your arms are going to naturally move along with your hands. We really want to think about the elbow leading your hand up and down as you move, as opposed to reacting to a change in hand position. So what that means is when we do get to the point in a scale where your hand is moving because of a cross under or a cross over, we want to make sure that your elbow and your arm is moving in tandem with your hand. In general, as we move from low to high on the harp, we want to think about our elbows moving out, up, and back. Not opening and replacing all the fingers together after a cross. This mistake will really slow down your scales because every time you replace a finger, that takes time. So if you're placing 3 times individually instead of placing once all the fingers at the same time, that's going to take 3 times as long. To fix this, what we want to do is practice just after the cross under. So we want to play the last note before the cross. So in this case, I'm going to practice a cross under. I'm going to play my thumb, and I'm going to open all of my fingers into the shape they need to be in order to place, and this includes moving my elbow to make sure my hand's in the right spot, and then I'm going to place them all together, but you want to kind of freeze in that little spot where you can check, are my fingers in the right spot? Are they all ready and just hovering beside the strings ready to place? Then place them all together. If you kind of turn that into a little mini exercise, this is going to clean this up in no time. Now, our last mistake that can end up making your scales sound choppy is too much rotation in the hand, and this can show up in a couple of different ways. Firstly, your hand might tip forward and backwards if you let your hand rotate too far forward when you play your thumb. Once your hand is rotated forward from playing your thumb, then you have to rotate it back in order to replace those fingers. And that extra rotation is going to cost you a lot of time. This can be fixed by practicing slowly and just watching to make sure that when you do play your thumb, you're keeping your hand still and not allowing your hand to rock forward. The other way you might find yourself rotating your hands is outward, away from the string. This is usually also happening at a cross-under. When you play your thumb, you're allowing your wrist and your palm to rotate outwards, and then that means to get back on the string, you have to rotate back onto the string. This can also sometimes happen if you aren't lifting your thumb high enough to replace. If you're kind of dropping it low, then you might feel like there's not enough room for these fingers to open, and so you might kind of bring your hand away from the string and then back around. And so, like most things with harp, there's just all these tiny little places where a little bit of extra time can actually really significantly slow you down. So to practice this, once again, we want to practice the spot right after a cross under, and you want to focus on lifting your thumb up and moving it back alongside the strings. Only practicing scales in one key. If you only ever practice scales starting on the same note, you might find yourself getting tripped up when you're playing a song and there's a scale passage that starts somewhere else, because it's just going to look different where your fingers are crossing under on the strings. Plus, practicing in different keys gets you some good practice with setting your levers or pedals and getting used to different keys. If you want a resource for different scales in different keys, along with harp fingerings and lever and pedal settings, I actually put together an ebook like that a few years ago because I couldn't find anything like it. So if you're interested, the link for that is in the description. And once you fix these mistakes, your scale should be clean and smooth in no time. But it can be really difficult to fix your scales if your hand position isn't set up right, so check out this video next to make sure you're not making any of these common hand position mistakes. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you later.